Tell me, little mother, you're so tiny. Talk to me. Have you had any children? I'm sure you have. Lots and lots of children. How many? How many husbands have you had? Oh, talk louder. 5 or 6? Did you like them? Did they hug you?
Il te plaisait. Il te serrait fort. Hein, Titi? C'est bon, hein?
It feels good, doesn't it? It's a caress. You see, you're sensitive too. Who'd have believed it? Pretty little toad.
Joli petit crapaud. Hein? C'est bon, ça.
In the Middle Ages, this animal was judged to be the ugliest in all creation. Considered as evil, its presence alone in a house was enough reason to burn its owner at the stake during the Inquisition. Despite our contempt for them, toads are so well adapted to our planet that they can even be found on the highest summits of the Alps or the Himalayas. Although batrachians, or amphibians, were the first to conquer the Earth, they weren't specialized enough to be able to integrate totally. Imperfectly adapted to dry or humid climates, this ambiguous animal was always thought of as the mistake of the animal kingdom. Man hates its protruding eyes, its wart-ridden skin. In addition, the animal's motivations and behavior are totally incomprehensible to him. For these reasons, we are very cruel with him. The toad, however, helps us by devouring the mountains of worms, mosquitoes, spiders, and other insects, which we hate even more than the toad himself. The toad is our friend, although we don't realize it. One of the toad's greatest defenders is the writer Jacques Lacarrière. A few years ago, he published an anthology dealing with batrachians.
There is a belief from the Middle Ages which claimed that there was actually a double creation. God had the power to create, but the devil, who was constantly interfering, could not create, although he had the power to imitate. If we gave him a model, he would try to reproduce it, very clumsily, of course. And so God, for example, created the bee, and the devil, trying to imitate him, created the fly. God created the dog, and the devil created the wolf. Therefore, God made the frog, but what did the devil do to imitate him? He created the toad, which thus becomes a diabolical animal. There was a legend that during the full moon, toads formed a circle and croaked in order to summon the devil. It was their way of worshipping the devil. Witches went even further. For their ceremonies, during which they made their evil potions, they would often disguise toads, dressing them in red breeches, jesters' caps with bells, or bells around their neck. In short, they dressed them as human caricatures.
Bref, elle les habillait en caricatures d'humains.
There was a recipe which was still used in Brittany near Dinant between the two world wars. It was a simple recipe in which you took a toad, cut it in half, boiled it in water, mixed with armoise. Armoise is a plant that grows almost everywhere, and it's from there that absinthe comes. Then you'd get your neighbor to drink a glass of it. And immediately, the victim would be in your power for at least 12 hours. Imagine, if your neighbor is a charming young lady who's been refusing your advances.
Jeune voisine, n'est-ce pas, qui se refuse à vos avances. Il ne devrait pas exister.
He shouldn't exist. That's the problem. He shouldn't be on Earth, but he is. Not only that, but he's an animal with incredible resistance. Did you know that toads can go 6 months without eating? Even in the hollow of a rock. Toads, therefore, had to be tools of the devil, which meant it was normal to want to exterminate them. And it took centuries to get rid of this image. Centuries.
Des siècles.
La nuit est limpide, l'étang est sans ride, dans le ciel splendide, lui le croissant d'or. Homme, chêne ou tremble, nul arbre ne tremble, au loin le bois semble un géant qui dort.
C'est quoi?
Chien ni loup ne quitte sa niche ou son gîte, aucun bruit n'agite la terre au repos. Alors dans la vase où rentrent en extase, leurs yeux de topaze chantent les crapauds.
Elle est mignonne comme ça. Tu veux pas m'aider un peu, Charlie?
Ils disent nous sommes haïs par les hommes, nous troublons leur somme de nos tristes chants. Pour nous point de fête, Dieu seul sur nos têtes, c'est qu'il nous fit bêtes et nous point méchants. Notre peau terreuse se gonflait, se creuse d'une bave affreuse, nos flancs sont lavés. Et l'enfant qui passe loin de nous s'efface, et par le qui nous chasse à coups de pavé.
Les enfants le prennent comme un clown.
For children, the toad is a clown. For adults, he's a nuisance. For children, he's a clown with feet, and they have fun with him. They get him to smoke using cigarettes. They put a hat on his head because the toad lends itself well to that sort of thing. The animal itself is a walking disguise, a sort of natural parody. It's to show that he seems human, but he's not. Not only does he caricature a human being, but he can only move in a grotesque manner. He's a grotesque imitation of ourselves. He's not our relative, but a false friend.
Every spring, irresistibly attracted to the water, toads travel for miles to find the pool in which they were born. They usually follow the same route and prefer traveling after sunset. Mating can begin on the way there, but it usually takes place in the water.
There are also very special sexual habits, consisting of embracing the female, but in such a way that she often doesn't recover. It's a form of clinging that can't be modified. And so, before we understood this phenomenon, we thought the toad was lustful, libidinous, almost a sex maniac, all signs of the devil.
Led by instinct, up to 6 or 7 males sometimes try to cling to a single female. Depending on the passion and the number of male candidates, it is not uncommon for the female to drown during mating.
Among those who began to look at toads as something other than evil creatures was a well-known priest and batrachian specialist by the name of Spallanzani, who carried out objective scientific research on them. He was most interested in the clinging reflex, which lasts for hours, and by which the toad impregnates the female. Spallanzani, for example, would take the male and put a 10, 20, or 30-kilogram weight on him to separate him from the female, but in vain. He went even further. He would cut off the legs, the front feet, the head, still with no success. The monster, he said, would continue to hold on to the female. His experiments were at the same time a mixture of iron scientific will and cruelty, which he himself acknowledged. He said, "I use barbaric methods, but I really want to understand the reason for this clinging." Spallanzani had some well-known successors, such as Buffon, Geoffroy Saint-Hilaire, the great 19th century naturalists. And progress was made, but not always. Even Buffon, who described the toad scientifically, dissected it completely, and studied all its organs, couldn't help but impose his fantasies on the animal, claiming that the toad had a sort of revolting power on women. An honest woman, upon seeing a toad, either faints or at least feels ill, whereas I don't know what happens to dishonest women. You need a toad to check if a woman is honest or not. And even this absurd, ridiculous legend, which can be proven false at any moment, was still espoused by the most renowned naturalists. I think that the first one to do justice to the animal after Buffon, Lacépède, and Saint-Hilaire was Jean Rostand.
Jean Rostand was the son of the dramatist Edmond Rostand. As a biologist and an evolutionist, he studied congenital malformations in the toad and the frog. His work paved the way to the study of modern embryology.
I was delighted to observe a slight particularity in the behavior of a fly or a larva. It seemed important to me. I always valued truth, even a small truth. My pleasure lies in seeing something new that nobody has ever seen before.
Accept the toad and we'll be even. This was Jean Rostand's way of signifying that tolerating an animal so strange in appearance and behavior was a way of admitting that the right to be different had no limitations. At Puy des Sceaux in the Landes region of France, he founded a center for the study and reproduction of frogs and toads. Studies in toad malformations are now completed. The present problem is the animal's survival. Jacqueline Lestage, a member of the Jean Rostand Center, discusses the question. We don't know what purpose he serves, and I think that's why we don't like him. They say almost anything, that he urinates on you with his eyes. I heard that when I was a child. Also, he has horrible bad breath and that he brings bad luck. But they're all absurd. It's incredible how we think of ourselves when we see his body, his thighs, his stomach. I think man and the toad are very close. The toad's evolution stopped, but I'm sure evolution